no-brainer.
Okay.
Okay, we are live, folks. So we got a special guest tonight, Idaho Sierra Law. He's running on the constitutional ticket for Congressional District 2. That's going to be against Simpson in the November ballot. And nobody's running. Do you have an opponent in the primary?
No, because I'm a fusion of everything anyways. Green and free, constitutionalist, DSA, independent.
Okay.
How's that? Because I ran for everybody that was parties in the past. And so I made friends everywhere in that. And so I have obviously, and I do support those. That's why I've always been the green and free for a long time. But constitutionalists, I enjoy them. And they're into some of the issues I am, organic things, dealing with contaminated soils and foods and all that. And we got a real problem of that in this state. So.
Well, that's one of the interesting things because right now it's like all the parties have at least some interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Republican Party has a strong interest in clean food and clean resources. Democrats, of course, Green Party, Libertarian, Constitutionalist, everybody reaches in and touches it a little bit in some way or other, whether it's medical freedom, even Dorothy Moon from the Republican Party supports medical cannabis as an option. So it's like we're seeing a big shift as far as distancing ourselves from the over-processed community stuff that is, what we deal with on a day-to-day basis here in the U.S. and in Idaho. It's one of those problems you got whenever you got the New York Stock Exchange and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange controlling all of the produce in the entire nation. Yeah, it's rough.
My brother still won't touch Red Dye 5.
If you'd like, I can tell you the story of how I got the support I got years ago about all of this and who did the lab work.
Yeah. So, Idaho, you've been doing this for a long time now, as far as the nuclear residue from everything that came out of INEL back when it was first started.
Probably. And the downwinders, I worked on with them for years too, yes.
Right. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Idaho Law does an awful lot of activism on nuclear waste, nuclear radiation, and various other things. So
I'd like to
everything.
add, some of that is, or a lot of that is product, not waste. It's all product, either in your foods or for weapons.
That's one of the weird things about the way that they decide to handle that in most in most cases. It's like we go through a process and something comes up and it turns into a waste product rather than an actual value added product. And next thing you know, they're marketing it to us for us to eat, as if somehow us ingesting it solves the waste problem.
Well, it does. It gets rid of it. I'm sorry.
In a very cynical
They've been
way.
doing that in hot dogs and everything for years.
Well, it's everything else because fluoride. No, it's a waste product. They convinced us it was good for our health. Skim milk, waste product. They convinced us it was good for our health. Seed oils, is used as industrial lubricant. But it didn't work as well as everybody thought it should. So they convinced us it was good for our health.
Yeah, especially cottonseed. That's been around a long time.
Right? And it's not really surprising when you start taking a look at radioisotopes and nuclear byproducts, depleted uranium armor, depleted uranium ammunition,
But there's nothing depleted about it. Not at all.
Both Joe and I have had to deal with that in some capacity or another, either in Iraq or Afghanistan, because we use it as reactive armor on our tanks. We use it in our munitions that we spray all over the Middle East. And we
Well, it's
adjust the
better than spraying
dust.
it around Idaho, but
Yeah,
not
but they
really
did one
because,
time,
yeah,
didn't
I
they?
know how they sold that.
You know, they've been dumping radioactive waste into Idaho soil, for what, 70 years?
84 years.
84 years.
First
84
started
years
here.
ever since Arco went nuclear, the first radioactive city. I mean, nuclear powered city. Uh,
Well, it's partly because the largest deposit of uranium materials in the United States is in southeastern Idaho. But it's overlapped because of the plate tectonics, but you spread it all out, and it's about 140,000 square miles. And I've met with the people who were the miners and their safety. They have improved, but what they did before, they've never cleaned up. And so
yeah.
Now,
they're not bringing it mostly into cities anymore.
now my question with radioactive waste or by products, what would you advise as one of the better ways to deal with it?
Well, my
Like,
solution in working with the tribes is very simple, is no-till farming. In other words, I have to come up with a solution for things before I ever, deal with issues because I won't just run something down if I don't have a solution myself. And basically the only solution that's anywhere feasible is no-till farming. And basically, I've gotten some effect here with places in Idaho that have stopped using the chemical fertilizer, the uranophosphorus fertilizers. Yes, they leave the word urano out of it, uranium. But I've met people who are now planting wheat, just not tilling the soil, just shallow doing it because gravity, water, and weather, this is the heaviest of materials. It will sink down into the soil naturally. It wants to get back in the earth where it came from. But it waits in the sea layer of the soil, if you're familiar with soil. And so some places you can see it quite thick. It depends how much is started with. Could be 10 inches of powdered uranium, processed uranium materials in this area. So yeah, you don't want to disturb it. Not at all. You don't want to till it because then it goes on your food. And who helped me was the one person or one groups, if you want to hear, and I mentioned it, I can tell you, is Big Tobacco. Big Tobacco contacted me years ago at the Ben Lomond, I'll even say where, Ben Lomond, problem in Idaho with the depositing and leaving this stuff behind. And I said, what are we going to do with Pocatello? Bury it in 20 feet of topsoil? And that's what caught their eye. And they met with me and they identified themselves. And I said, with all your laboratories and all your money, you don't know how the uranium got in your cigarette? So I had to prove it to them because I wasn't just going to tell them. I had to prove it to them. And I did. And they took all their money out of Simplots, all of it, Big Tobacco. And then they stopped it being sold east of the Mississippi River because they're farmers. That's where tobacco grew. And then they got the Surgeon General changed the label and they were never sued again. So, but they were a drug cartel. So, what do you think they said about the people in the West? They said they can all die because they can't recover all those billions of dollars they had to give out in lawsuits all those years. And it's still a myth. People still think that's what causes cancer. But that's a problem when Spirit Cigarettes, and I'm naming a group, that bought up some of their old land that they abandoned. And yes, the uranium turns up in the Spirit cigarettes too. And so that's you just substitute an unwashed product, tobacco, because it's on the plant, not in it, really. Because plants are not stupid either. They evolved with it. They have no use for it. But it's on the plant, and it was on the tobacco, not in the tobacco, in the cigarette, but not on the tobacco, in the tobacco. And the same thing with the issue of becoming on the foods. It's not really taken up by the foods, but the glowing potato project of Idaho is real. And now Koger and Albertson didn't go through with the merger, but they said, we're going to make money because we're not going to use water to wash them anymore. And I spent years getting them to wash the potatoes. So now you better wash them. And not only that, they're contaminating the other stuff in the store because I've seen it already, even with a Geiger counter. So it glows when it's in a black light, okay? Because that's how they used to hunt for uranium in other than Arizona, where they have carnotite little lenses. No, out in the West mostly is uranium hexafluoride. And so it's a gray rock, which is what ours is. When they take out the fluorides and things, and you just got left a whole bunch of more concentrated, the whole decay series, which I like to call just the uranium series, is there. So, again, the tobacco companies use chemical extracts and separate it now. So they just care about their nicotine, not the smoking too much. But some places have people researching to see if they can find out. The bigger one is now Florida. Florida now makes uranium fertilizers more than they do in Idaho anymore because they've been trying to get out of it here. J.R. Simplot is, tainted by it. But he didn't know. I will defend J.R. because his wife supported me in the arts years ago. And she asked me in Boise once, how come he had to sign this secrecy agreement? And I said, duh. The Manhattan Project. That wasn't here, was it? She said. And I said, yeah, sorry. Yep, it was here. This is our largest deposit of uranium, and it was classified just a few years before Second World War that this was our largest deposit of uranium materials in the USA. It overlaps a little bit into Wyoming and Utah too, but mostly southeastern Idaho.
So with my questions too, because I like to think of a way forward for America is nuclear energy, because we're going to need a lot more energy coming up.
I'm not against nuclear energy, never have been. Just against the humans that are greedy and shortcut things and don't do safety issues. I'm very well connected to those people who I watch the 50 reactors in the United States and beyond. And believe me, there's a near explosion thing almost every day somewhere. So if you want to be afraid of nuclear power, just connect with the Union of Concerned Scientists person who does that. That's his baby. And that'll scare crap out of you.
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't know. I've always had but we talk about like proper safety procedures for like pulling it out of the ground and putting it back in the ground after we're done with it. The only ones that I've really found for the products is a deep geological repository. Are there any
WIP
other
program? You mean like the WIP program?
Well,
storage of it.
It's just essentially just like a deep hole in the ground.
Yeah, that's WIP. That's WIP. Yeah, or Norway. Norway dug the deepest hole in the world.
Yeah.
To store it, and then they let everybody talk about it. Well, somebody will think it's a pirates left their hoard, and they'll go into it. In other words, there was nothing they could do. It wouldn't stop somebody in the future to wanting to go in there. So,
yeah.
But yeah, a WIP project. Yeah.
Is that really the only viable way that we can get rid of or store waste product? I guess by the products of.
Well, we tried to throw it all over the Mideast. But just like in the foods, it ain't going to go away for thousands of years.
Right.
And how many cancers are possible?
I have no
That's
idea.
A question. 27 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay, possible cancers. And there's actually more than that. That one's just easy to figure out. And yes, I'm the one that's put that out everywhere because that's who I interact with, people who are just care about money, but they don't care about prevention. They won't say a word about where it's coming from. Not Pocatello, not anybody else I've met from any university and any medical place. There were some people who, trying to cure cancer they knew, they're the only ones that ever talked about it, was that the uranium ends up in the bones, those leukemias. But you couldn't say leukemias plural back then, and I did. And finally, the internet changed and allows me to say plural leukemias because there's thousands and thousands of them, different varieties. Believe me, the numbers are astronomical. So prevention, let it go back in the earth. Send it to the sun if you'd like.
I don't know how viable that is, though.
Put some of these with the people who leave on the Goga Futsun ships and send them off to Mars with Elon. That's my opinion.
I know.
Elon did not know about it when he met me. He didn't, but then he learned and he wanted to know. So I just figure I enforced him to want to leave more, more reason to want to leave. Even though he started acting like me after he met me. It was weird, dancing, being silly. I'm a comic too. And so, which I'd like to do some comedy when I come over there, which I'm doing again here. So,
So we're talking about downwinder as well, because recently Idaho was added to the list. Blaine County in particular was added to the list of groups of people that can file for downwinder syndrome for disability.
well, I told you I was part of the fallout people, downwinders, and there was 3 places that, of course, the major places that this stuff came north. Normally, it would not have come this way, but sometimes their weather changes and it came north. And I was assigned the Banbury one. So no one wanted to be the person when it's falling down with a Geiger counter and say, "Well, here's where it's coming down." Nobody wants that job. They would look at it years later to see where the cancer clusters were. And so that's, one of the ones I was assigned to because people said there's an anomaly in southeastern Idaho. What is it? And I was working for Greenpeace back then too. And so they asked me to solve it, and I did, and solve the redacted stuff and everything about hiding again under the Manhattan Project. So, and it got dumped in every city in eastern Idaho along the rivers. Part of the reclamation project for the Teton flood, not even listed in the reclamation project. That's why it came to a surprise when our team was up there in Rexburg and go, "Wow, you got to come and see this." And I went and they brought me in. I said, "Maybe let's see how it got in there. Maybe some truck dumped a load of it." No, and after about 100 yards, I said, "Turn your Geiger counters to the road that followed the canal, because the canals are only visible because I got snow or water there for a few weeks." And so it was basically 18 inches across at least and foot thick of placer uranium materials. And once after there, everywhere we saw it, every canal and all the roads are made of it. Everything was using the reclamation project, not just in Rexburg. That's probably the worst city, but even Idaho Falls. But I leave that out because I know I've seen it in the past. It's all covered up with concrete and asphalt in the downtown area, the river area. But it's still there. They didn't remove it. I could go with my Geiger counter and show you right where it is still too.
So, Joe, one of the interesting things about a lot of the research that Lorax has done over the years, in association with other things, is the occurrence of particular kinds of cancers here in the state of Idaho. Everywhere where the phosphate mine soil has ended up at, that's what it is. It's radioactive isotopic phosphate that were used for glyphosate, Monsanto.
People, that's a diversion. Anything that says it's linked, buddy, is not no proof, because when you're already eating it, the science is null and void, and it's proven 100 years proven, and that's what causes cancer is radioactive materials, alpha, beta emissions, mainly alpha. But people will also say from the beginning of the nuclear age here, betas don't go through even a piece of paper, and alphas, well, they don't hardly go through anything. They would take that argument and say, the only one we're concerned about is radiation. Well, radiation is about the least of concern you need.
Doesn't matter whether it's alpha, beta, or gamma, if you eat it.
And we have a Van Orden belt to protect us a lot from that. But you get it in you, feed it to you, breathe it, get in your lungs, it ends up in your gut anyways, because you get there from your lungs, and drinking the water. And Pocatello has 1 million tons of uranium on the maps we use that show over the aquifer. So a lot of people here do not drink Pocatello water.
Don't blame them.
I never have in years. There's springs that are good still, but not drinking the water.
Makes you wonder how that's going to be affected when all of that radioactive water starts flowing through data centers.
Well, that too, yeah. Like I said, they're looking at putting one here, but they're saying it leaves less water than On, which makes chips, and that's the company that's closed now. Um, but they still use a lot of water.
Oh yeah.
And Pocatello doesn't have a lot of water.
A
No.
lot of water and a lot of electricity. And
Yeah.
not only, yeah, I mean, in Idaho, I know well, I grew up in the Southwest, so we're always in
Mhm. Yeah.
drought season. But Southeast, like, still, you can't be using water too much. I know it's a little bit more green, but they take a lot of water, and from what I hear, they put a lot of bad stuff in there, like anti-corrosive measures and everything in that nature as well. So,
Well, and that's one of the things that an awful lot of people really don't understand about Idaho is the rare earth minerals. A lot of them are isotopic. We have uranium, thorium, plutonium. Just about all of them are relatively close to the surface here because of the nature of the Rocky Mountains. It's
Well,
place
that's
where
its source area, is the Rocky
yeah,
Mountains. But the formation they're found in is the phosphoria.
yeah.
That's why they mine the phosphorus here. But like you said, it's phosphorus uranium deposit is what it is. So
Well,
yeah,
they're
and
coming
so
in close,
they don't
so close.
separate those heavy metals from it, or there's rare metals. Then of course it goes with the products.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to separate them unless there's a lot of money and cost to do that. And
Now, one of those
permit.
things that you actually see that's interesting is our legislators, as well as our Washington delegation, are pretty consistent about trying to hide all these facts and relations. They voted against the regional medical database that
Mm-hmm.
would have allowed federal hospitals and healthcare providers to track instances of cancer across the United States. So we'd be able to identify what kind of cancers occurred in specific areas and be able to allocate resources to support those specific kind of cancers. Well, we killed the database. Our Washington delegation did, so that now we're not tracking, the types, kinds, and quantities of cancers that occur in the state of Idaho. So it's like every time somebody gets a cancer, it's like, oh, it's not new. It's the same cancer everybody's been getting in Idaho for the last 70 years.
Well, actually, those categories, because as I mentioned, the number of
Oh,
possible
yeah.
cancers. And the issue has been here that they denied. There's a nice article that was done in 2000 because my work was done in the mid 80s with the tobacco company. But finally, ASC.org or whatever, they published on the radioactive tobacco. They did an independent little study, but they also involved the American Cancer Society, and that big corruption happened at that same time. And when I was chasing the person for American Cancer Society all around because they wouldn't tell the data. They were ignoring the leukemias and all kinds of things. They were doing all these little manipulations until I just chased them around and got it because the state finally published something for a short while that we were number one in cancer, period.
Mm-hmm.
But then they buried it because, it doesn't look good, right? So they
How can you
buried
get
it.
people to move from California to Idaho if you're telling everybody in Idaho gets cancer?
Well, but California gets all the cancer. They've been using the fertilizer for years.
True. We've been
And
shipping
the
all of our
workers there in
phosphate
the
fertilizer
fields, they
down to
know,
Cali.
the people do that know, because I've informed them years ago. And they
Yeah.
die, mostly the farm workers, because they breathe it. They get it quicker than just eating it. And they die of leukemia and cancers. That's their main number one thing that kills them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're there dealing with it. But like I said, some farmers here through the years and what I do, and other people I work with, of course, I've stopped using the fertilizer. We have farmers markets here, which I'm very supportive of, and there are people in it that their stuff right across the street from where the weapons company is and J.R. Simplot. So no, I won't buy from anybody there. But there are people who have learned, moved their farms for that, their organic, what do you call them, farmers market things. have done that because everybody wants healthy food.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. And I'm glad, and I have to put out a pitch for Jesse Wells because I met him. Well, I didn't meet him personally, but we connected early, and he did the song "Cancer." And if you've heard of Jesse Wells, he's up for 4 Emmys. I think he's got 2 more albums out. Young guy is phenomenal. But yeah, he
I
did
will
the
say,
cancer, and the first line is "everything you eat."
yeah,
But
I
then
will
he still
say,
got bogged up in the other stuff. So we got to stop it. My program is cease and desist the production, the use, and the transport. The tobacco companies stopped our stuff going, so we started to ship it overseas to the West. But now Florida, Mosaic, and Peace River area, they make more than Pocatello does.
Yeah. What were you saying, Joe?
So,
I was just gonna say that Jesse Wells is probably a celebrity that I would probably like be happy to meet. I'm not like a big celebrity person at all. Like my wife is always like, "Do you know who this is?" I'm like, "No idea. Don't even care." But like Jesse Wells
yeah.
seems like he's one of those people I would really like to have a conversation with, if you will. And I just think I think he's a cool like dude. I mean, I like his music, so.
Oh, he is. He's quite talented. He shared with me how he does, how he works it out and does it. And he sent me something else just not too long ago. Again, more about, because I ended up doing that piece I mentioned, bare arms. So
Mhm.
I'm sure he had that too of mine. He was like, "Well, I'm trying," but I didn't do the music part. I just wrote the lyrics. But they played it at the comedy club the other night. They said, "You got to see." I know who did. So, and I'll be spreading it out. I just didn't know how to use it at first. It was brand new. Suno. It was done with Suno. It's an AI music
Right.
sync kind of site. But it's all my lyrics, and they did a fantastic job with it, meeting my personality type. So check it out if you can. Yeah, at least it's probably on our medias. And anyways, Boise Valley Voice, or yeah, I think they were put on all of them. Upper Valley.
Yeah.
You name 'em. I can't even remember all the sites we have. Yeah, so.
Too many sites.
We didn't get famous because of money. We got famous because I was worked for PBS and public access and writer and publisher, and I'm a mean person, or mean meme person. And we
You're a
were
mean
famous
memer.
for our meme making years ago, #1 in the country. So, but now everybody's into that. It's got to make fun of people. It's the only way you can laugh because it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feeding people uranium materials at will that don't need much at all is just crazy. So, and they've known it's not an issue. They didn't willfully knowing. So I just say I'm not the person that brings the court cases. I deal with my own cases and have won, obviously. But no, we're a reporter. We're a scientist. We will help you do it, and I've helped people all kinds of places for the years. INL people, people had exposures and things,
Mm.
and worked in many states on it. And I still tied to people in certain places where atomic bomb stuff parts were made in different places. So we got to get a handle on it. Or Idaho potato, the glowing potato, will hit #1, and that will hurt our economy. So, and the same with the university. That's why people are listening, because the students don't want to go for an interview. This is what they gave me last fall at homecoming. The sororities and those groups that are in the parade. They said, we don't want to go to an interview, and somebody says, "Oh, it says Pocatello, Idaho. Isn't that radioactive city? You went to Uranium University? What are you, an idiot? Get the hell out of my office." Yeah, that's where they're coming from. They invested. Their parents invested. I got stopped today because I'm at the university, because I'm meeting with international students, because I know why ISU lost all this money with the Kuwaitis left, Kuwaitis and Saudis. Lost millions of dollars in here. And they're now already, this new president is starting to lie already. And that's a shame. So, no, there are people, I'm glad people are getting more aware. People always that I'm persistent, but I just don't work here. I work at all places all over the world. Anything that people ask me for, and I solve their problem.
Yep.
Another time for that stuff. Sorry, I am a talker, so shut me up.
You're good. I mean, it's what we're here to do, guys, is talk, huh?
Yeah,
Well, a
well,
lot of
people
this is
call me
about getting
they
knowledge
gave me a
out there.
word that they called me
Knowledge.
a crowd worker because I said I
Yeah.
like so and so, Jimmy something, an English guy, and he just works the audience, and they said, well, that's what you are. You're a crowd worker. I said, what? What is it? And then somebody else did it too, and I said, I'm gonna look it up. What does that mean? Crowd worker. I mean.
Right.
And yeah, I said, yeah, that's me. I know how to get in people's space quickly, make
Get,
them laugh, feel comfortable.
Yeah.
get people going.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So tell me more. I'd like to learn more what you're doing because I'd like to publish this too. And I have published, I think, one or two of the other ones when I knew it was there or sent to me. So Joseph Morrison, um, tell me. I'd like to hear more about what you. It's just between me and us, I guess. But you people are going to listen, so I'd like to know more. Where
I
you come
mean,
from?
so I grew up in Grandview, Idaho, if you know where that is.
Yeah, I
Um,
do.
and I mean, spent all my childhood there. When I was 21 and joined the United States Marine Corps. Um, did that for a couple years. While I was in, my dad did get cancer, died in 2017. And that's kind of where like I really gained a lot of interest from like the downwinders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is because my sister tells me that he was part of the downwinders lawsuit essentially. So, but I had no idea about like this whole thing of the testing. I think, but from my knowledge, it was from the north west in like the Spokane area, Washington area is from what I was taught about. But anyways, no, and then did the Marine Corps for 9 years, got out after recruiting duty, and after that, just been working a steady job, IT. Just that was kind of what I really wanted to do. Just work 40 hours a week and be able to provide for myself and my family is really all I ever really wanted to do. But have a house, everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as we progress further down this line, it seems more difficult to obtain the American dream with study, with ability to attain a decent paying job. I mean, it's nothing special, but it should be enough to where I can provide for myself and my family at a reasonable amount. And that's really one of the reasons I kind of started to really like turn political, because everything is very political. At the end of the day, the taxes you're paying on gas, taxes you're paying on food, everything that you're paying, anything that you're paying into the system, it comes back to these. This is the political structure that's working this. A lot of times we've been able to work underneath the structure of the system, the weight of the system. It's getting to a point where we're not able to work under the structure of the system anymore, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
that that is one of the reasons that I really felt like I needed to stand up and speak out and show up, and is because this system is going to start crushing a lot more people the further down we go, and we need to have voices of reason in positions that can um, hold the people to highest regards instead of just a select few.
For sure. And I tell you another issue that I did because it has to do with livelihoods and people and their lives is back when the right to work was brought up by the state legislature many years ago when I first came here. And basically, the unions and stuff were fighting it. And so at that time, it was Occupy Pocatello movement going on. I wrote the right to work to take it back as an initiative. And they circled it around, and even those days with little bit internet we had, I couldn't have been Idaho Lorax did that. And I go, There couldn't be. And then there's some people going, I could remember seeing that. They said, no, I think it is. It is him. And so I brought it up again with them. And I said, I don't want no more elephants in the room. I said, you can go and do a local public initiative. If you don't win, don't matter. 50 signatures you can do in some communities, but you'll get national attention because nobody's even tried. And so just right to work. But at the same time, I think a lot of William people have been slaves, and they have been the robber barons from whatever through history. And so I'm the one, I think I'm the one who made it coined, and AOC adopted it as an expanded version. I used to say, no one makes $1 million. It's all off the back of the worker. And she upped it sometime because she connected me and $1 billion. Well, yeah, inflation. Okay. So, but it's so true. And so I said, you're just being a slave to the oligarchs, or whatever you want to call them, the robber barons, and articles I've written about them in the past. And that attitude it's you're not going to change unless you make cooperatives. And we haven't. I said, I shop at Winco, worker owned. Okay. Well, who runs it? Not no capitalist group, so to speak. I won't use that word, but basically, it's all within, or that's the way it's supposed to. And there's a lot of them in this country, but it's the media that keeps it suppressed, and that's too bad.
Suppressed and divided is a lot of
suppressed and divided. Yes,
is a lot of what I feel like our media is actually good at. Is it's not projecting the voice of the people at all. It's not giving us the real news of what we're actually facing, or how we can actually take back our power. It's had to go to independent, thankfully with the advent of the internet, there's a lot more groups, there's a lot more podcasts that are out there, there's a lot more people talking about issues that are involving people that are not being talked about in the mainstream media. And that's great. That's amazing, because there are a lot of issues that are under the surface of our current system, and it's good to expose these. Sunlight is the best disinfectant is what I've heard.
I like that. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yes, for sure. But TikTok's getting carried away. I'm sorry, they flooded things. 3 people on there, kind of like us, I guess. We're a small group today, but just sometimes ridiculous things. But again, people are frustrated, and they do, and people's egos are into it. But it's overwhelming people, and But I went through it on some of that. So
yeah.
Well, that's one of the things.
But even the chat sometimes, you got. What are we going to do about some of that stuff? As I got a comedy piece that I did when I used the chat. I think it was Grok at one time years ago. But then lately, a person, I'll tell you this quick story. The person, my editor, says, "Oh, you should use Chat GTP." And I sat right next to him as he was working on TikTok. And then I go, hey, I don't exist on Chat GTP. I just don't exist. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I don't exist. And I said, who owns it? And so he looked into that, and I ended up getting more into that. But then I was deleting it from my phone a couple of weeks later. I figured, I don't even know how it got on there. You know how these apps slip in. And so I decided, well, I'll try it one more time. I'll ask. So, and I did. And suddenly I was surprised. You chat Idaho Lorax, they were sharing a GDP. They were sharing some inside information of how I work. Boy, something, I guess because I asked the first time how something happened. And not only that, they called me a legend now. I've elevated from a influencer years ago to a legend. And I just told him, I said, my friend, I said, look, am I a live one or a dead one? No, that wasn't clear. Don't you have to be dead to be a legend? That reminds me getting hassled by the security here today. But I mean, they know me, but somebody gives a report, says I didn't do something right. And then we talk, and who I'm with. And I said, no, I don't give leaflets out and all that stuff. People ask, though, I do, because this ain't politics. This is issues in health and safety. And that's pretty much what I'm about. But I'm basically, I'm a libertarian, but for the most part, green, yes, I'm an environmentalist. Even my thing in there, what I am, the fusion is eco-DSA. And I put it in small letters because I think I'm the first one who ever ran DSA in Idaho, also running it for mayor. But now there's a new wave of people in it, and I'm going, well, that's
there,
cool, you know.
there's such a massive wave DSA coming. Like, and this, but so it's so it's one of those things like, you have the signal lights of like more AOC, Mamdani's
Yeah.
Zoran, um these people, but like it's gained so much popularity in America at this point. The Democratic Socialists of America is it's super popular within like the blue states and blue cities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I feel about them. they I don't know. Mamdani did something. I think it was pretty popular along the boards. He like taxed the ultra wealthy house of somebody. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know about this, and I
Yeah,
think
I
that
know
was
some
like
of it anyway. Yeah.
I think that was pretty popular across the board. I listened to some, besides maybe like some super right wing people, but it seemed like it was pretty well like, this is fine. Like it's like their second home they live in like one time out of a year, just like a vacation home. Yeah, let them pay, make them pay a little bit more for it.
Right.
They come for the vacation, they leave with cancer.
Yeah. I wanted to add, have you been aware what was it Maryland or Delaware? Anyways, proposing now to get rid of money in politics. The whole
um,
whatever that's called again, whatever.
so
You know,
so
they're got
Citizens
an
United.
approach to get rid of it. I just published it today, spread it, I so to speak. I heard him talking about it before, but apparently it's got a momentum because it's in the state laws. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to agree with that. States can have rights about how they define corporations.
Mm.
So they can word it so yes, they cannot donate. They cannot give money for candidates.
So one of the
So
things I'm kind of curious or really thinking about in this coming up next election, because it's too late right now, uh, is the framework from Montana. They're doing like a transparency election initiative,
yeah, I've
essentially
seen that too. Yeah.
bypasses Citizen United.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of interest in initiate like at least trying to do something with that and in regards to ballot initiatives as the
Yeah,
next election season
people are
comes around.
trying to deal with it in a state
Hmm.
levels, at least those
Yep.
who have more interest or care, have maybe some influence. So yeah, I haven't followed it for a little while, but I remember when it was first talked about with Montana, because I'm not far away, right? And Montana has gone through different things throughout history, but just meeting with people, I didn't know they had so much nuclear problems and stuff in the eastern Montana. Some woman
Mm.
today is thinking taking her kid out of school, or yesterday, because she was just telling me all this shit, and she wanted to know everything I had on the tables, and so. But we talked for quite a while. Yeah, it was a whole bunch of people ended up being around us because of the topic and the issues. So. But yeah, everybody, a lot of places have. I work with Ohio and all the people who involved with nuclear materials there in Kentucky and Ohio and issues. The radium girl places.
Right.
One time there was one, they contact me from Louisiana and they go, well, we found this by the stadium. The government found it because it was near the stadium, but it was buried in the middle of the road, had this uranium. And I just said, well, look, it wouldn't be just stuck in the road. Somebody's getting rid of it, and it was before somebody thought of its value, except the radium. And so the radium was removed, just like they dumped it in a river outside Chicago area, contaminated river for a long time. Probably still is. But basically, yeah, I said, yeah, you better look into that. It's probably somebody tried to start one or had it operational for a while because they moved from state to state. The states would get hip of it and close them down, and they'd show up in another because there was money to be made. The radium dials, the radium girls, they were the first good, sorry how we had to get data, what radioactive materials do to people. Before that, we just had Madame Curie. and her husband died. They were
Right.
playing with it. So I guess that's not funny either, but people need to. This is not stuff you should play with.
No.
And I've had Grok say, even though it was weird, and I'm going to go into that one, but basically, said no, Trump wasn't into it, but that's dangerous stuff, and you really should be careful how you handle it. It was being sympathetic and concerning and new, and so I said thank you. And I won't go farther than that because it got weird. It's a comedy piece. You'll have to hear me. Anyways, that
Oh,
was a few years ago when I was in the Caribbean working on lionfish and the Great Atlantic Soylent Green Sargassum Project. I named that one. And saving the
Soylent
reefs. I'm the
Green.
one who figured out why the reefs are dying in the world. I didn't actually figure it out. I have informants that shared with me in the
right.
Caribbean. But yeah, I'm still. They all basically died. The reefs. They just got seriously concerned. But I told other people at least, no, they're going to come back. They live in the oceans. They're floating all around the oceans. You get the right streets and stop them. Well, I'm going to say because I'm going to wait till the octopus people share what it's about. Stop them from what they did the first time. They killed the reefs, bleached them. So
Right.
yeah, I'll be working on that one as I need to get it out. But I put it on hold because I guess most of the reefs I've seen are dead. So they're now into the reviving them, and they listen to me on that. So that's good. So they're coming back, but it'll still take a long time. So again, you're talking to a scientist, a white background. But I am a constitutionalist by background too. So, and I know it's got problems, but hey, we can change it, right?
Well, that was
Well,
one of the things, the founding fathers, they gave us the options to change it.
Yes.
They created the means to amend it as we went along, and Lord knows we've changed it enough,
yeah.
and in some ways it weren't, as good as we had hoped. The authorization to tax the people, of course, 16th Amendment, that didn't go as well as we had hoped it would.
Do we expect anything else?
Can I ask you one question, a constitutional question? Second Amendment.
Yes.
Well, what is the Second Amendment? Say it. Either one of you.
The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. It's for
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
So the Second Amendment is the. Let me try then. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed, and keep in.
Missing the first
This is
part.
Constitution, written in the Constitution. It's the right to form a militia.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, you remember it now?
Well-regulated
it also
militia.
has a second
To have a well-regulated militia, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
And then there's a second comma. That's what my song is about, the second comma. Because, and I don't mind sharing it now, because my thing's out there. Basically, the second comma is an M dash, because they didn't have an M dash back then. So if you knew the language and how people spoke and wrote back then, because that's basically an unchanged amendment, okay? It's basically pretty much how they put it together. So it's got the second comma, and that's where it goes, comma, right to bear arms. So my name of my thing is Bear Arms, Bare, because I speak in my song about arm wrestling. When you're in a conflict, I want to be able to go home to my family and my kids, but I want to get resolved. Look at that arm wrestling. And it happens in any bar. It's been happening for thousands of years, probably.
Right.
I'll arm wrestle you for it, whatever. But yeah, not get a gun and shoot somebody. I mean, we've gotten out of hand with guns in that respect. So no, usually I know very few people can get it right. The right to bear arms, or not the right to bear the other militia. But I have somebody I met with a tattoo and's got it all clear on his arm, and I said that is cool because he's got it right. Because we just get into repeating. We're a repetition, math learning. Just repeat, and so that's what you think it is. But it's the militia is very important.
And that's
important
actually
to
an
change
interesting
things.
thing, because
What?
one of the things that we were going to discuss was the Southern Poverty Law Center. And a lot of what it has come out recently with regards to extremist movements are organizations that they have basically lied about, and paid people, in order to deal with. So it's like you're looking at it and talking, and Southern Poverty Law Center is saying this is extremist behavior and that's extremist behavior, based off of what their informants are telling them, or in some cases, based off of what they tell their informants to tell them. And we've seen an awful lot of slamming of various militias in the U.S. We stand them up. They come together for a purpose. Southern Poverty Law Center comes along and says, no, that's extremist and it's hate action. And it's like, no.
Right.
But we've literally watched the Southern Poverty Law Center be used to disrupt the actions of, legitimate extremist and hate behavior to disrupting the Occupy movement.
I don't doubt it. I abandoned them years ago because they would listen to me about issues that needed to be dealt with or even accept them. And it helped me, I got lawsuits and other things, you guys can't help, forget it, you're useless. And I lived in the South a bit too. So it's like, don't tell me about the South being too much different.
So essentially, my understanding of the Southern Poverty Law Center situation is they were paying people to be agitators, essentially.
Yeah.
In like right-wing organizations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, and the thing is, it's complicated because they weren't the only ones who were doing it. Okay, the FBI was running COINTELPRO, which is counter-insurgency program, where they were paying informants to infiltrate what they believed to be extremist organizations. But in an awful lot of situations, what they were doing was their informants were intentionally antagonizing. So you had these FBI informants deeply embedded in helping fund hate-based operations in everything from the Proud Boys to, the libertarian movement, the constitutionalist movement, the Tea Party, and the Occupy movement. Basically anything that had an impact on the way the oligarchs wanted things to go, all of a sudden there was these people, these agitators, being paid by the FBI, being paid by Southern Poverty Law Center, being paid by any number of organizations in order to go in and disrupt the movement and attract people and convince them to basically go full Ted Kaczynski.
Yeah. Here's another one of my experiences. When I was very young, a young teenager, and I was at a very large demonstration, but I was like really good with trees and falling through them, just kind of like Avatar, just jumping. Anyways, I was very quick and loved doing that stuff because I have some Eastern roots at the time. But basically, I ended up in the trees at these things, and so I could see where the agitators were coming from. And so I would point it out to everybody down below who can't. And I'm a little kid, but see that where anybody said anyway. But then they went after me because I was the one letting them know who's the one that's sneaking in to disrupt them so they can charge them and tear gas them and club them and all the stuff that was happening that day. So
you get people come in and start acting the ass, and they're paid to act the ass.
Right.
Yeah.
and that justifies police action against the group.
So the SPLC thing that also leads me like down this line of thought of like AstroTurf.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like promoting these groups with no actual support or anything like that, and trying to artificially gain more support. That like, it's so hard to see like if anything is actually like grassroots anymore without any like AstroTurf, essentially like this dark money coming from out of state, or for terrible purposes, creating hate agitation instead of just trying to get people to build a community. Man, it's frustrating.
And one of the things, Gregory Graff, who's a longtime political analyst in the state of Idaho, recently published a lot of his findings on extremism in Idaho, and the source of an awful lot of this dark money that comes into the state. And we talk about who funds which organizations in order to accomplish certain goals. Everything from the Idaho Freedom Foundation to the Idaho Freedom Action. You're seeing the family values organizations that are coming out. Basically all of these, very few of them have enough to do a true grassroots movement. The people who coalesce around it wouldn't even show up if somebody hadn't thrown $1 million at the 3 or 4 people who organized it in the first place. So it's like, but thing is when you can throw $1 million at an organization to spread hate, and everybody else is looking at this organization going, well, they're getting money from somewhere, so apparently a lot of people think the same way.
Right.
No, they don't think the same way.
Yep.
They've been astroturfed, and they've been given enough money by these organizations who make money, countering hate, allegedly, or starting hate groups. And it's like you're looking at it and you're going, it's the same 3 people all the time. They got $1 million to spend, but it's the same 3 people spending the $1 million.
Yeah.
So we look at organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center, and we take a look at the organizations that they allegedly hate, but we found out they've been funding. And they're loud enough and pretentious enough to seem like they got a following. Yeah, you're right, James. Everybody's just a promo show. And you brought it up earlier, what's the price tag to sell out, your fellow citizens? How much are you willing to accept to spread hate? What's your price tag?
Yeah.
And that's the thing with an awful lot of these hate groups is somebody found the price tag, and they started spreading, and it doesn't take a lot for an astroturfed group of 3 people to seem like there's 100 of them.
Right.
And we watched it happen, consistently, for the last 30 years now.
And then with those 3 people, like with that AstroTurf, you can easily get the group thing going. Like it doesn't take very many people to propagate something in order for the group think to start. In all reality, and that's kind of like one of my issues with the left side of the Democratic Party has always been very like groupthink, and there's not a lot of differing thoughts and opinions on situations or issues. And the right has always felt more open to the Republican side. It was always felt more open to differing views and opinions, but like one of my things I see is like the groupthink is very terrible in Idaho at this point in time.
And that's where we get horseshoe theory. You know, the further left you go, the further right you go, it eventually all comes back around to the same place. You know, you got groupthink theory that's real bad on the far left. You got groupthink, you know, that's real bad on the far right.
Yeah.
You know, and well, yeah, there may be more variation in certain things, you know, among the right groups than on the left. But you'll still find that the thoughts on a very few right-centric ideas, you know, are still very groupthink oriented. We take a look at one of the problems that we have here in the state of Idaho with Christian nationalism. You know, we've seen it come up. We've seen it rear its ugly head. We've seen political candidates, you know, come in talking as if that is what's going to save the state of Idaho. You know, it's like, well, we're going to make everybody go to church at the point of a gun. It's like, yeah, no, I don't think that's the way forward with this.
And not only that, but like my big issue with so one of my big breaks is privatization of schools.
Oh yeah.
I really honestly, and I've brought this up to multiple people. I see it as like an Obamacare-esque type thing. Granted, the taxpayers aren't paying the corporations, but at the end of the day, they're going to pay the people, and those schools are it's just tax subsidizing the school. You're still tax subsidizing the school, and so it will raise its rate, and so we'll have to pay more. If we're doing it so efficiently in private schools, then bring that information to the public schools. Use those same frameworks. And I don't think they can, because I don't think they're running it efficiently. I think they're running it at a loss.
Well, and that's one of the things. Private education in the state of Idaho is running at a loss. You know, in the same way that it's running at our public schools are running at a loss as well. And that's because we're not paying attention to education models that are actually successful.
Right.
We gave up on successful education models back in 1979 when we created the U.S. Department of Education. Okay, all of a sudden it became a government-funded boondoggle, and we were no longer interested in an education. What we were doing was we were funneling money into McGraw-Hill and Peterson. You know, instead of paying $10 for a lesson book, you know, per student, all of a sudden we were paying $300.
Right.
You know, what business does a public education organization have spending $300 per book per student? You know, and you're looking at what, 8 classes a year, 8 books, 300 a piece. We wonder where that $6,000 per student goes. You know, it's not going to teachers; it's going to McGraw-Hill and Peterson.
You know, I mean, and that delves into that issue, like with the military-industrial complex as well, with the issue of paying like $2,000 for a $1,000 laptop or anything like that. You're paying way overpriced for what the product is, and I don't know if that's the willfulness of Congress to just be like, yeah, I'll just sell off the American people, like he was saying, or if it's that they're unequipped to handle a high pressure salesman. And it's hard to say, because like these people are going to come at you with high pressure sales techniques, you know, and so you have to be aware of that and cognizant of it, and ability to stand your ground and say, no, I'm not buying your over market value, like literally item or issue for what I want to do. So
yeah, so James brings up a good point. One of the things that they're doing is they're selling the future of America. You know, they're spending to be spending. You know, they're not investing in the future. You know, because that's one of the other things that we deal with. The education, Peterson, McGraw-Hill, yeah, they have access, but when you step back and you take a look at what they're actually doing with the education system that they are effectively the monopoly on. You know, there's only 2 effective distributors of education material in the United States right now. It's either McGraw-Hill or it's Peterson.
Well, I would
So,
add. Can you still hear me?
yeah.
Oh, I don't see my picture there, but that's okay. Yeah, basically, I've been involved in this area as an educator for a long time, and I was often hired where people would do it. I usually only do it for a little while with them, but no, they knew I would go scrap things or go to a secondhand store and didn't use books, And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
talking before the internet was really that popular either. And so basically creating things. I did when it's first robotics, I said, find some old radio your dad has or somebody has, and you all bring it to school. You take it apart, you learn everything in it, every little resistor, everything. And then your task is you got to make it move, as a team, always team
Bring
teaching.
back popular mechanics.
Yeah.
Uh, and Radio Shack.
Yes.
But they learn so
Oh,
much
yeah.
that way because it's project learning, which I'm a project learning expert. Okay, and I will say expert because that's what I've been doing around the world. Is people hire me mainly for that, and so
Well,
that was fine.
that's one of those things that we talk about with education formats, how people learn. You got
Yes.
individuals who learn by watching, you got individuals who learn by listening, you got individuals who learn by touching. So when it comes to tactile exploration of things, the building of things, the creating of things, it's an important role in the education process and the way the mind processes information, stores it, and preserves it. And it's like one of the things that we did was we took away shop. We took away
Oh yeah.
home ec. We took away these things that required a tactile expression, in order to learn. We took away sewing and typing, and all we were given were books. And in addition to that, we're not even getting books anymore. We're paying $300 for a program that's stuck on a notebook, or a tablet. So our thing is we flip through it.
Here's my secret of one of my successes, of course, out there in the education world, is I use Myers-Briggs. And I'm very good at it, is to use it to placing people and issues and counseling and everything else, part of my background. But I do this to my students, and then, they get to a point is, how do you know who my girlfriend is? Or how do you know what she's like? All these kinds of things. But the thing is, I put them into what you call Myers-Briggs groups. Okay, so you had everybody there based on the way of learning, their talents, or one that's going to be this, have the whole group doing, and then I'd have different groups. And boy, they produce anywhere. Even if I'm only there for a couple of days or a day in school, I just do that. Boom. And everything. Well, they're not doing anything because they finished everything. That's why.
Yeah.
And I said they could have free time. And they did it. Boom. Yes.
But it's like right now we have some amazing programs out there for educating people. Wolfram Alpha for math. You got Khan Academy as well for a number of other subjects. Now, true, this is YouTube videos type stuff and, working on a screen. But at the same time, what you have there is self-paced learning mechanisms. You're no longer working on a schedule to the lowest common denominator, where one kid gets done in 5 minutes and he's got to sit around for the next hour waiting for the slowest kid in the class to finish the same thing. You have self-paced education, which is something that is almost universally refused to be used in any public education system that subscribes to the U.S. Department of Education programs. Back with No Child Left Behind was, well, every child's left behind now because no child moves faster than the slowest individual in the group.
I also had a slogan back then, no teacher left behind. And I loved it when I was in Asia and I saw that the Texas place that started all the children, that they had all failed and got out of it. But no teacher left behind is pretty much how we ended up with, because getting rid of teachers, good teachers often, and the children then failed. Yeah, especially people taught like I do, And so, yeah, that's a shame. But, you know, they did better by finally getting rid of that, at least that Texas school.
Yeah.
But you could do that anywhere I went in the world. It's what they want to do. They want to see change. Some of them can handle it. Some of them are set in their ways, so to speak, and it's difficult for them. And I said, well, you brought me in to train you and do you and have to learn, and then you see. But if you can't change, well,
But
you
that's
won't
one of the things
change.
that's interesting because as a scientist like yourself, how do you practice the scientific process if you don't get the chance to explore it while you're growing up?
Well,
You know,
that's definitely, yeah. I know
you're
my
not learning to
background is
do
very
science,
much
you're
involved
just
with that. Yeah.
learning to do rote memory of something some other scientist or
Mhm.
alleged scientist said was true.
Mhm.
You know, you're no longer doing the experiment. You're no longer growing staph infections in a petri dish or whatever else is
I'll give you
extremely
another
dangerous
little
to one's.
example that I ran into people and parents, because I
Yeah.
do know a lot of people do homeschool because they're not happy with things. But I've had people say, well, you teach my kid music because they knew I played like 50 instruments, right? And was rostered artists and stuff like that, National Endowment monies and things. But besides that, I said, okay, you want to pay me to teach your kid, that's all good. But then I teach him for about a week, maybe a little more, and I said, "Well, I'm done." What do you mean you're done? I said, "Well, I taught him to be a self learner, and look at he can improvising and do all this stuff now." But she wanted a babysitter, you know, and which is that element exists out there. Is the
Well,
schools are still take care of them because I can't handle them.
sometime around
So, anyways,
1950, that's what we turned schools into, was babysitters.
yeah, probably so.
You know, as we started shifting it from, single family incomes into two family incomes, or we
Yeah.
started seeing, married women getting into the whole mother's little helper thing. It was, I don't want the kids in the house all day. Where's someplace I can send them? Now, of course, Joe and I grew up in, latchkey kid era where, both parents had disappeared. Whether they were going to work or not, we have no idea.
The door was
But both
unlocked.
parents would disappear for, all day, sometimes for a week at a time. And it's like the kids were left to their own devices.
To be fair and in defense, my mother was very much in that regards. She would be one of the people. When my parents got divorced when I was 4, my father was consistent as the day is long, like as consistent as the sunrise. Every day home at 5. Like I don't know what was up with him, but yeah, every day home at 5 and bed by 9. Clockwork.
So you didn't apply my thing when mine was just be home by street lights. So we took the BB gun and shot them all out.
Yeah.
So what?
Find a
Hey, come
local
on! I ain't
pond,
seen
go
no.
hunting salamanders and tadpoles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some of
Yeah.
that.
Well, city people, I've always enjoyed, but it's hard being a person who's in a small environment with little
Hmm.
places to learn from. Except when I taught one time, I brought the kids to the Smithsonian Institute. That
I
was their
oh
study. Okay, going
that
pretty well.
Smithsonian Institute is quite a vast array of knowledge. But I will say,
Oh, yes, it is.
when I joined the
And I
Marine
had an
Corps,
opportunity to take
uh,
at-risk students, a lot of women, African American women, and get them on a bus, and here we go. You're just spending 2-3 days a week at the Smithsonian Institute. Here's your study guard, but make one up too as you're doing it. It's just indulge, be immersing in knowledge and
yeah,
things that people have done.
Yep.
So,
And of course, one of the things James brings
so
up
I
here
have
is,
hope, but I see it failing.
homeschool in relationship to religious indoctrination. Because that's one of those things that we see an awful lot of is people worry about indoctrination by the state in public education. So they pull their kids out to make sure that they're indoctrinated in the religion they want them indoctrinated in. And it's one of those where you see a problem start to develop because for whatever reason, that religious indoctrination takes an extreme turn. So how do you deal with that when it comes to all of a sudden it moves from a homeschool opportunity into psychological abuse?
Right. And that's a big question. Because that is true. Like indoctrination and like cults are a huge thing. You can take a look at a lot of different religions, and you can always see the cult. And it's, to me, is one of those things where I look at the situation. If I'm gonna write a law or push for a law for entire society, it would be like, we shouldn't be indoctrinating the children. There should be laws against indoctrination of children. I don't care if it's trans ideology or if it's religious fanaticism. There should be laws. There should be laws that protect the children, in my opinion. And I don't think that our laws are doing enough for
The thing is, that's one of those slippery slopes.
Right.
Which is why so many people, particularly, on the centrist and Republican, is saying, look, we can't go writing laws against indoctrination because of how quickly that can be abused. Now all of a sudden the state is arresting everybody for indoctrinating somebody, just so that there's only one kind of indoctrination that's ever allowed to exist, and that is the state's indoctrination.
Right.
Because the state all of a sudden is defining what is normal.
Yeah. And that is, you don't ever want to put that in the state either. There still has to be protections for kids. I don't think that we can. That's, I guess, is my big thing, is like, we need to protect the kids, and that's not just like a slogan. It's like, how are we going to actually protect the kids? How are we going to actually make sure that they don't come out of school complete zealots, or complete zealots for one side or the other? Because I know all the time they talk about it for like indoctrination of trans ideology and stuff like that. I agree that we need to stop indoctrinating children, but I agree that we need to stop indoctrinating children on both sides of it. I guess I don't know how I would really want to go about it then, because in my mind it would be a better solution for a law of some sort, but I can see where the state having a law, some sort of way of like the red flag laws and stuff like that. I can see that kind of argument coming up. So
what I studied one time in Pocatello, Idaho. I was doing some graduate work here. I studied team teaching, and they actually built buildings here, for that shape, and allow that to happen, to be team teaching. But then when I came, I was studying, it was all falling apart. Everybody's going to the isolated, centered room and their own world, and trying to control that or deal with that, instead of having the team approach, which is a variety of people mainly, and with different views and styles and backgrounds, but all working together with like 3 or 4 different classes together, because there's some points they're just got to do things and they just need to be watched so somebody can get a break, and all kinds of ways. It was developed in the 70s, pretty much. But we killed it as that stuff started to spread around the world, or around the country, because it's still going on in other places though.
And that's one of those other things about some of the principles regarding different education methods.
Mm-hmm.
So certain churches, I won't name which ones, had to develop protocols for Sunday school teachers and for youth pastors, so that these individuals were never left alone with children and young adults that they were supervising and educating. And it basically meant that there was always at least 2 adults in the room together. No one was allowed to be alone in order to overtly influence or create a situation that was dangerous to an individual or a child. So, and again, this comes back to your talking about the group teach process where you have multiple adults in the room that are providing this level of supervision, where, as sad as it is, what they're doing is they're keeping each other honest.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming all 4 of them hold, or at least the majority of them hold to, core moral values.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again,
now we've seen
there's
what
a difference
happens when
between
you get
private
four.
schools and public schools, and I
Yeah,
believe in public schools because I worked a lot of places. But I've seen things change where it was the private schools that just wanted my talents. Period. Really rich
oh yeah,
kids and Hollywood kids, and they wanted what I had to offer, and they were willing to pay. And I like to go different places, and I like to snowboard in Squaw Valley. So things like that, But it's still team teaching is actually when you can't get that, that's when I'll just let the kids be the teams. Remember?
yeah,
Cooperative learning, the groups and everything. I let them do it. So I'm just a facilitator in a lot of ways because, they understood that if they needed to know something, you got everybody in your mixed Myers-Briggs group there to figure it out or find it. And then if you need to, you can ask me permission to go talk to another group to see. And then if that doesn't work, then it's me. And then they go, well, you don't give us the answer either. You just give us another way to find it. And I said, that's right, because it's your learning. And it's just something that's important to you. And I've had those stories where the kids that wouldn't do anything, that's all they would do. The teacher would say, that's all he does in my class is your stuff. I said, my stuff? What? He's got his own project. He's just
well,
highly
and that's one
motivated.
of the other things that's interesting too, because I mean, when was it during this process of moving out west that we moved from the one room schoolroom, where you had kids, who were learning and experiencing through 6 and 7 different grades at a time. And you'd have a single teacher that was asking, certain older children to help younger children.
Mm-hmm.
When did we shift from that to entirely the cohort method?
Busing.
Cohort.
Right.
Busing them to
Everybody
some big
starts at
school
the same
somewhere
time.
from
Everybody
miles
finishes
away.
at the same time. Everybody is within, 6 or 7 months of the same birthday. And it's like, how did we lose that process of educating older children by having them educate younger children?
It works to some degree. It does
Yeah, it works
because
great.
yeah.
Especially if you can keep the older ones from, educating the younger ones through the school of hard knocks.
Mm.
Joe's remembering. I remember that time I had the little thing. And,
what the hell are we focusing on?
So, how else are you supposed to learn grit?
well, anyway, we're at 80 minutes here, Idaho. So
I didn't know how long you went either. So.
we go anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half,
Yeah.
but we need to wrap it up here.
That's okay.
So
I was
Idaho, go
glad
ahead.
to be
Let
part of
everybody
you
know
this
where you're
time.
from.
Just shove something at you in a note. So, anyways,
And so
it's nice to
Idaho,
meet you.
you got a
Morris,
website.
Meet you. What?
You got a website. Tell us about how people can find out more about you.
Well, the website I have is called the U.S. Media Network, and that's all the things that we do with the Lorex Group. Because we're a group of people of passion, and that's what they do. Nobody's paid. They do what their passion is, and I don't judge passions, and that's what always ran it, because it's a small area, but
Yeah.
we're known internationally because I knew how to do certain things, encourage things. It still needs to be reworked because new things like TikTok is just overwhelming people with a lot of crap. But some people still know how to use it well and other things. But new things keep coming out. And like I said, I did the Suno thing with the bare arms, and it came out great. But I'm probably going to do some more and send them out to other people and things I deal with because I thought it was a great way to express what I was doing.
Yeah.
You'll have to hear it.
So you can find Idaho Lorax on just about every form of media: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, not always under that because it's either the Idaho Lorax group. There are some sites that are Idaho Lorax,
Yeah.
or at least some things I have more say in. But I tend to be just one of the editors in the other ones. Just, and I have people that, people screen things for me, right? And then I screen, if I, by my time, what I choose to put up. If they're sending it to me, then whether I put it out there. So
I'll go do my war
Yeah.
cry.
your war cry. Well, one of my editors here, and he's do my war cry. He does
So
a good
Joe,
war cry.
tell us how people can find you.
MorrisonForIdaho.com. That's Morrison, the number 4ID.com. And I'm running for congressional district number 1. That's the western side of the state, including the Panhandle.
Mhm.
I can have my TikTok or I don't have TikTok. My Facebook and YouTube are on the MorrisonForIdaho.com as well.
Okay, of course, you know how to find me, joeevansforidaho.com. That is FOR, not the number 4, but Joe Evans 4, Idaho. And of course, on this channel where you're watching me right now, I got the YouTube, Twitter, which is where I spend most of my time, and of course, Facebook. So look us up. All of us are approachable. You want to ask questions. I've fielded more than a few phone calls in the last few days. People calling up and saying, "Hey, Joe, what do you think about this, that, or the other?" All of us are approachable like that. You won't get that kind of response from our current delegates or our current legislators, but us, we want you to know how we think.
Imagine what we can do with the team.
Yeah, we want you to
Let me
ask us
ask you
the
guys
questions.
a question. The audience has a question.
Okay.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to your thing?
Either you guys.
Oh, you want to ask them something quick?
Yeah, you all politicians in Idaho. Here's a question
No,
for you.
people, candidates. Go ahead.
Okay. So you're hearing the Idaho's voters' voices. So if cannabis gets elected and the Idaho, what is the process for that vote to become law in Idaho? And because I know in Nevada, it was the Secretary of State who did most of the stuff. But I know the GOP in Oklahoma, and I know the GOP in Nevada. When the people voted for it, they enacted the law.
Here's the process in Idaho. Okay,
Tell
we
me.
have 2 ballot measures that are going to be on the November ballot. Okay, one's going to be cannabis, the other is going to be reproductive rights. Now,
Okay.
the people in Idaho will vote for both of them. They will pass at the ballot, and they will go to the legislature that is elected at the same time. So we vote to pass cannabis, we vote to pass reproductive rights, and the legislators we elect.
So now, will those become amendments on the Constitution?
No,
Or well,
no.
so yeah, tell me about
Those become
the law
law.
aspect of it.
Those become laws. However, there's a step in the process. Okay, when we vote on it and we say we want this for Idaho, we want this to be a law in the state of Idaho. The legislators that we elect at the same time we vote to make that a law have the opportunity to veto it.
They do? I didn't even know they
How,
did that.
how can they
In
be?
direct
How can
democracy.
they have an opportunity to veto a ballot initiative? Isn't that the people's voice? If you vetoed a ballot initiative, wouldn't you be saying no to democracy? And wouldn't you be like kind of inciting one party rule and a fascist state?
Yes.
I mean, you can't take the people's voice away by a veto. Come on, man. I mean, well, we need to have term limits back. They did us
But
dirty in
we've done it.
2000. We need to get
We've
all our stuff back.
we have done that in Idaho. We have passed ballot initiatives. And then we elected legislators that told us to pound sand.
Yeah, so
We passed
that
term limits. And then we elected legislators that said no.
so I'm hopeful because in Pocatello last spring a boy was murdered in his yard
Yeah,
and the state said everything is okay. It was it's a bad tragedy. Well, I thought what was cool because I would go out and I've been advocating for change. So we don't have any more tragedies. I'm not anti-cop. I'm very pro training and change and non-lethality. Peace state, not a police state. Treat us like citizens, not like flocks and cattle.
right.
But yeah, I
Okay.
think we need to start.
Now, one of the things is the Republican platform states that power is derived from the consent of the governed. Okay. All political power is derived from the people. They say that out
Right,
one side of
right.
their mouth while at the same time saying, if you choose something that violates our party principles as the governed, as the people, we will overturn it.
Yeah, so that's really not representative government,
No,
is it?
no, it's not.
Extortion that they've been working on for years since I came here to Idaho
But
to
that
limit
is the process in the
direct
state of Idaho.
democracy, public initiative.
Now, is this because of o- do oligarchs control the legislatures? Why would they want to treat the citizens bad? I don't understand what the dynamic is because when I went to Idaho, I'm sitting in Idaho State right now, and my favorite professor here was Ron Hatzenfieldler, and he taught us a class called The Age of Jefferson.
Yeah.
And one of the things he taught us about government is that the, the whole purpose of government is to bring citizens happiness. And it's not about taxes, it's not about any of these other things that have just gone weird on us. So I really do believe Ron. Because really, what would be the purpose of government if it wasn't to bring citizens happiness?
Okay. Now, thing with regards to the age of Jefferson is the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that was a variation on what Locke actually taught. Locke taught life, liberty, and protection of property. So the introduction of happiness under Jefferson was one of those things that allowed the government to do certain things, okay, which was take property in order to ensure the happiness of the people, because welcome Adam Smith and his influence over the Scottish Enlightenment. But one of the things that we look at is ultimately the existence of government is to protect the rights of the people. That was the entire foundation on which the Anti-Federalists and the creation of the Bill of Rights was for. Protect the rights of the people. The rights of the people are the rights to life, liberty, protection of acquisition and protection of property, and the pursuit of happiness.
So Ron actually, he would argue that that pursuit of happiness, he said in that time period, it meant to have happiness, not to have the tools or any of that other stuff. Government was supposed to, you know, we as citizens, I guess, would provide them the tools necessary to make us happy. But I don't know. I just think we've gone way off that path. And when the government doesn't represent citizens, okay, so who are they representing? What's going on? We need to get the PAC money out of Idaho.
Oh yeah.
Well, what?
You know, you're not telling us anything new here. You know, in a
Yeah.
lot of
No, I
ways,
know,
the
I
reason
know, I
we're
know.
running is specifically because what it is you're asking us. You know, we're running because we're tired of PAC money controlling legislation in the state of Idaho. You know, we're running because we're tired of oligarchs looking at the people's will and saying, yeah, screw you. We don't care. You know,
Well,
it's like you voted us to be gods. And if you're not worshiping us, you're dirt. You know, we actually have legislators sitting in the state house that are that narcissistic. You know, they feel that being elected was their mandate from God to rule over the plebes.
Well, there's a lot of people in the entire world now who aren't really buying into manifest destiny, but we still are buying into liberty and justice for all. We're still buying into God bless America. What?
I spent 13 years in the public education system every morning. You know, I pledge allegiance to the flag, you know, liberty and justice for all. You know, how freaking mad do you think I am, you know, to turn 58 this year and go, holy shit. What a lie. I bought the lie. You know,
Well,
I mean, I still
I'm
believe
sorry to
in it.
bring this because we did go long.
We were at a disadvantage.
And at least you got to hear from the public more than your Kennedy town hall here, which is good, you know, because you didn't have a link to do that. So you came back inside. So, anyways, yeah, this is. Did you give your name? Do you want to? He's being quiet, so no. But he's got bad
Okay.
hearing in one ear.
I'm trying to really get these things that I've thought in.
Yeah, he's composing other stuff because he's an editor, writer. So
But we'll let him get
yeah.
back to composing and editing.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody who joined us tonight.
Well,
And
but it's a good
James,
discussion.
yeah,
It's a
you know, rude as
discussion
you are,
Idahoans
you,
need to
you got
have,
some good
I
stuff.
think,
Yeah.
with each other.
He was
So,
just complimenting that everything you're doing is great. So yeah. Anyways,
sounds
thank
good.
you.
So,
Hope to
Awesome.
see
good
you
night
again.
Thank
Let
you.
me
and
know.
so long.
Keep me in touch.
Good night.
Okay. Bye bye.
I didn't say everything's